We have more Jon Jones updates against Tom Aspinall and why that fight is not happening from Ariel Helwani last night. It just dropped and it's a little bit of juicy news around the fight. Something that we already expected, other things that maybe, we didn't know that was happening. So we'll get into that in today's video. Joshua Van has a quick 3-week turnaround. This motherfucker just fought 2 days ago. 2 days ago, and he's already fighting again against Brandon Royval. This is just a massive risk, and we're going to be talking about that in this video as well, and what a stud Joshua Van is. And then Jack Della Maddalenas, of course, came out on an Instagram story, and he was talking about fighter pay, the UFC structure, and I think that's created a bit of debate online, so we can talk about that too today in today's MMA news show. First and foremost, I want to talk about Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval. I've been dying to talk about this. I made a video just yesterday breaking down Joshua Van's excellent striking and talking about how much of a good prospect he is. This is his 9th fight since 2023. He's 23 years old. He is an absolute marauder. People forget he's a beast. An absolute beast, and he's chasing gold right now. And if he can beat Brandon Royval, he's right up there. Not only that, he's on one of the best win streaks currently, right? He lost to Charles Johnson, so it's not really a winning streak, actually. I almost said he was on a 9-fight winning streak, but he lost to Charles Johnson. Now, that loss to Charles Johnson makes me more confident inadvertently he can beat Brandon Royval. And I think that loss was coming for Joshua Van. Being so active, he was going to make a mistake in one of those fights and get caught. He needed to face that adversity before facing it later in his career against a top contender. Let's say he goes in there against Brandon Royval and he's on this insane 8-fight winning streak if he didn't fight, 7-fight winning streak if he didn't fight Charles Johnson, or 8-fight if he beat Charles Johnson. Royval might surprise him. If he faces that adversity earlier on in his career, it's better than doing it late. He's had his takedown defence tested against Ray Sayura. He's fought some decent fighters now. Bruno Silva's decent. Charles Johnson was decent. A fight he was winning up until the stoppage. Is he ready? I think skill-wise he's ready. I don't think he's going to gas out in this fight. He doesn't lose a lot of weight, I don't think, to get down to 125. Probably barely any compared to Royval. Royval's long compared to Joshua Van. That's going to be a problem. Royval's fought at the top level. That's going to be a problem for Joshua Van. This is a different kettle of fish, okay, for Joshua Van to get in there with. It's a different kettle of fish. Now, it's not 5 rounds, which is going to benefit Joshua Van a little bit more, because round 4 and 5 is really where Royval could come on strong in that fight. Royval's got decent power. One thing I think Joshua Van is really going to struggle with in this fight is unsettling Royval, in the sense that Joshua Van's pressure really unsettles kickboxers, and it really unsettles guys that don't have the composure with the hands. But Royval will stick behind his jab. He might time the knee up the middle. He's pretty good in the clinch. He's also very fast. He has a very, very good chin. He's only lost once since 2022, and that was to Alexandre Pantoja. Picked up some good wins on his resume, like Brandon Moreno and Tatsuro Taira. And he was written off against Taira, and he picked up a good win there. So Royval's very difficult for Joshua Van. By no means will this be an easy fight, and Joshua Van could very well lose. What I don't want to see from the MMA fan base, though, is a guy that risks it all like Joshua Van, staying so active, being discouraged by the MMA fan base, saying, oh, he got fraud checked if he loses to Brandon Moreno. Even if it's comfortable, this is the perfect fight where if he loses, it's okay, he can learn. It might have been too much too soon. If he wins, he's up there in title contention. So for me, it's not even a win-loss, it's a win-win in many different ways. Van won't want to lose, but you kind of get where I'm going with this. So I've been following Joshua Van's career since 2023. I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan from the start. It's well documented on my TikTok. Not so much on here. I'm excited to see what he can do against Brandon Royval, but not an easy ask. That's not an easy ask. Royval's not going to break the same way Bruno Silva did. He's not going to get flustered under Van's pressure, and he might try mixing the takedowns. Van showed great takedown defence, especially against Ray Sayura. Even if you get him on his back, he's quick to get up. He doesn't make mistakes, doesn't give his back. He gets up pretty quickly. But it's not going to be an easy fight. Royval's a very difficult opponent. Let me know your predictions for that in the comments. Next up, we have Jack Della Maddalenas kind of hitting out at the fighters on the come up in the UFC. Maybe on a 10 and 10. 10 if they turn up, 10 if they win contract. And he sort of said, look, the UFC pay structure is it's great. This is what you can infer from this. He likes it. He agrees with how it's laid out. If guys were paid more, especially on the up and come up, you'd see fighters be a lot less active. Now, unfortunately, as much as in an ideal world, I would love every fighter on a card to earn 50 million, right? Whatever, because what they do is high risk. And this is a bit of a sensitive conversation for some people, because some fighters, you know, have been killed, right? I'm just going to put it out there, especially in boxing, have been killed for $500. Do you know what I mean? That's all the family will have got in compensation from those incidents. So sometimes I think the pay is unfair. Sometimes I think it's exploitive in other organisations. But at the end of the day, on the other flip side of the coin, on another extreme, you see guys like Sean O'Malley, who earn a really good amount from fighting, will only fight once, sometimes twice if you're lucky, a year. Jack Della Maddalenas is unfortunately right. You have one end of the extreme where some organisations and some people exploit fighters, sometimes don't pay them, you get dodgy organisations. But then on the other side, if you pay, especially the preliminary fighters, too much, they're not going to be active. You're going to have shorter cards. You're not really going to have great cards. And that's just the truth of the matter. But I also don't think the UFC's pay structure is perfect. I would like to see, especially medical insurance, being covered more from the UFC. If a fighter pulls out, but you get some guys that want to fight on a card, they get a fight booked, and then the fight falls through. Now, the UFC sometimes don't cover that if that happens. They've been known to do that, I'm pretty sure. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I've not got research right in front of me. Maybe I should have. You know, I'm not a professional, I'm just a yapper. But I feel like the UFC could cover fighters in more areas. Not just, oh, we're going to pay you this much and this much. I also think the bonuses should be put up to 100k. But then again, last time Dana White upped the bonuses, for some reason, apart from UFC 300, the fights were shocking. A lot of the time, they were abhorrent. And it's so weird. And Dana White very quickly went, look, I'm putting the bonuses back down. You guys wanted higher bonuses, but then the fight sucked. So it's weird. If you involve more money, fighters might risk less. And they also might be less active. So Jack Della Maddalenas is kind of right. He is right. I definitely think the UFC should pay more in certain areas. I absolutely think the UFC have lost super fights, especially Ngannou and Jones the first time round, because of their refusal to up the pay scheme. You know, so UFC isn't perfect, but I think it is interesting. And in my mind, I agree with Jack Della to a certain extent. But on the other flip side of it, some organisations, not the UFC, but some other organisations can be very, very harsh with what they pay fighters and very, very unfair. Jon Jones, here we are again. What else can be said? What else can be said? I watched Ariel Helwani's video yesterday and he was talking about not wanting to fall for the rage bait. I have been falling for the rage bait. You have Jon Jones at a seminar 1 minute saying me and Tom agreed to not say anything, which was a lie, just a lie. As it would turn out, just wasn't true. Then you have Tom Aspinall hitting out at that, saying, what you on about, we haven't agreed to anything. There's nothing been agreed. Dana White has come out and reacted to the Ngannou stuff, which we talked about the other day on his press conference. He didn't seem best pleased finding out some of the stuff Jon Jones was saying. Completely shut down the idea of Ngannou coming back. At what point does the UFC grow a pair and strip him? You have survived without one super fight before, even including Jon Jones. You would survive if you didn't have one again. The fan meltdown initially won't be directed at the UFC, especially now with these new details. Ariel Helwani said the UFC got Jon Jones the money he asked for to take the Aspinall fight. He at first said yes, he was down to do it. And then for some reason, unbeknownst to us, he said, unbeknownst, what a word. I feel like a beast for saying that word for some reason. The power has all of a sudden just give me energy. Unbeknownst, wow, where did that come from? I'm uneducated. Either way, Jones said he wanted this money, whatever money it is, 30 million maybe. The UFC got it for him. They didn't with Ngannou, but they got it for him this time. And Jones said yes, and then for whatever reason, unbeknownst to us, big word there, he's changed his mind. We don't know why. We don't know what's going on there. I'm sure Dana White, if this fight falls through, will do a complete U-turn on Jon Jones. I said this the other day. You just watch. If this fight gets announced that this didn't happen, it's not the UFC's fault anyway, but you better believe they'll make sure everybody knows it wasn't too. Just like when they didn't make Ngannou Jones the first time, just like they didn't make Ngannou Jones the second time, they'll blame whoever's responsible. And even if they're a bit responsible, they'll make sure you don't think it's them. And Jon Jones will be in the firing line when it comes to this. Jon Jones is going to be a Hall of Fame in the UFC. Jon Jones' career will always be that of controversy. Will probably be that of, actually, despite everything he achieved, he didn't ever achieve his full potential. He could have been more active. It's crazy to think Jon Jones never really peaked in certain areas because he kind of he was banned for a bit after the Daniel Cormier 2 fight. He's got these blemishes on his career that can't be ignored. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is for Jon Jones. I personally think if he was to come in and beat Tom Aspinall after all the talk, after everything, I actually think it would help establish his legacy, undoubtedly. People will always have some things to say about you. People do it with me. People do it with anybody in the public eye. Anybody. But if he beat Tom Aspinall, his legacy for me, despite the Daniel Cormier controversy and whatnot, for me, can't kind of be doubted. Right? That's just the way I would look at it. That's just the way I would look at it. He is right in some areas when he says, like, guys like Cyril Gane, he was written off against Cyril Gane, and after he beat him, a lot of the MMA fan base were just like, oh, Gane's terrible, Gane's trash. And then Gane gets a robbery win over Volkov, and everyone's kind of like, oh, Gane was never that good. And you kind of see that narrative change. So that Gane win for Jon Jones, some people would say, hasn't aged that well. So I kind of understand it if it was from that regard. But I'm at the point where I don't care why Jon Jones doesn't want to fight Tom. You might not want to fight Tom because you think he's got a load of knob cheese and he's going to stink when you're grappling with him. You might not want to fight Tom because, I don't know, you see a bogey in his nose. You might not want to fight Tom because you're scared to fight Tom. You might not want to fight Tom because you've done all this and you're living your best life. Whatever. Whatever the reason is, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's never been that deep for me. I don't need to make videos insulting Jon Jones about his personal life. And if you want to do that, that's fine. That's not me telling you what to do. But I don't need to get on here to get more views or to get on here to rip into Jon Jones as a person and go after him. I don't know the bloke. I don't know the bloke. I don't care, John. You know what I mean? I don't care. I am from the northwest of England. I'm from Lancashire. Tom Aspinall is from Lancashire. I want to see this guy be heavyweight champion of the world. Just like I wanted to see Michael Bisping, who is from 20 minutes up the road from where I'm from. I'm from Burnley. Michael Bisping's from Clitheroe. 20 minutes up the road, if that's where I'm from. I wanted to see him get the belt. It's cool to see guys from where you're, near enough from where you're from, win the world title. Call it British bias. I don't care. I am British biased. I don't give a fuck. Yes, of course I am. I just want to move on. And when we look back at Jon Jones' career, he might feel that maybe this has done nothing to harm his legacy. But oftentimes, fighters get remembered for who they didn't fight, more so than who they did fight. Especially when you have the amount of controversy Jon Jones has in his career. And I think Jon Jones will one day realise that. Who knows? Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everybody.